The NCAA outdoor meet is officially over, and the men of Florida are now the national champions. Again. That is a three-peat, in case you're keeping score at home. They normally do it by dominating the sprints, but in 2024, they didn't win even one single event, whether it was for an individual athlete or a relay. So their best finish on the leaderboards was a silver medal in the 200-meter dash, courtesy of Robert Gregory. But he didn't break the 20-second barrier to pull it off. In fact, only one man in that race actually did. And of course, he is the champion, Cheickna Traore of Penn State University. Never mind the fact that those 10 points are the only ones that Penn State scored in the entire championship meet. But they are still in the Big Ten, which makes them a big-time program. Because beyond that, Cheickna Traore's victory is an even bigger deal, because he was not even an athlete that they wanted to recruit years ago. Which is why that is not where he started his college career. Because from the 2020 season all the way up until this one, he competed his entire career in NCAA Division III for Ramapo College in New Jersey, where their mascot is actually the Roadrunners. I'm not making this up. He was a national champion at that level before becoming a graduate transfer at Penn State. But you probably wouldn't know that if all you watched was the NCAA semifinal, because the announcers didn't even recognize that he was from Division III. Instead, they referred to him as a junior college transfer out of Ramapo. Apparently it's a place now and not a college. For the record, they did apologize before the national championship final, but I only bring it up because apparently nobody's been really paying attention to him. And clearly, he was never supposed to be this fast. Otherwise, he would have been competing in Division I years ago. And besides, he was the national runner-up in the 200-meter dash indoors 4D1 in 2024. In fact, they were probably so shocked when he won that their first words when he crossed the line were about Robert Gregory being in second and scoring points for Florida, because yes, they did become the national champions later on. But the fact remains that Cheickna Traore is now an NCAA champion again, but this time in Division I, and he's also a legitimate threat to make the final in the 200-meter dash at the Olympics in Paris this summer, because we pretty much already know that he's going to be there in the heats competing for Côte d'Ivoire. But it's also true that he was never really supposed to be this fast, and what that actually means is he represents the present state of track and field recruiting in D1. And it also proves that recruit rankings don't mean anything after the gun goes off, because the lanes on the track don't discriminate, but they do influence who gets into which uniform and why. But if you're new here, I want to say thank you for even making it this far into the video. And I'm Coach Rob, the founder of SCArecruiting.com, where I rank the best track and field recruits across the entire nation. And if anything that I say actually connects with you, it is always greatly appreciated if you would please like and subscribe. But if I don't, just let me know in the comment section, because I try to read them all. I first knew that Cheickna Traore was going to be a factor at the NCAAs earlier this season. I even put a video out to prove it. In the month of January, he was the only indoor sprinter in Division I to be ranked inside the top 20 in the 60-meter dash, the 200-meter dash, and the 400-meter dash. But the 200 was clearly his best event. But remember, that Penn State uniform is deceptive, because they sure enough didn't make him this fast, and they definitely didn't even want to recruit him 4 years ago. He only would have rated as a 2-star level recruit on SCArecruiting.com at the end of his senior year, which is technically good enough to get recruited somewhere in Division I, but definitely not by a school as good as Penn State University in the Big Ten. Regardless of all that, he ended up at Ramapo College in Division III, where immediately he proved that he was way better than advertised. But he climbed his way up to become a D3 National Championship finalist, both indoors and outdoors in 2022. And by that point, he had already run 20.5 seconds in the 200-meter dash wind legal. So in 2023, it shouldn't be a surprise that he swept the event, both indoors and outdoors, and eventually ran 20.25 seconds, which would have fit in just fine had he been running at the D1 national meet that year. But thanks to everything that went down in 2020, he had an additional year of eligibility. And that is how he ended up coming back to college as a graduate transfer in 2024. And as I already tried to tell you, he made it very clear during his first indoor races in 2024 that he was a legitimate threat for any sprinting event in D1. If you just forget about all the regular season meets for a moment and focus on his Big Ten Indoor Championship performance, he won the 60-meter dash and the 200 in that meet. For the record, in the 60, he had to upset Kalen Walker, who still went on to become the national runner-up in the 60 himself. He ran a new PR of 6.54 seconds to do it, which proves that he is a gamer. But he didn't run a new PR in the 200 to win that event, because he didn't need to. Because I'm trying to tell you, Cheickna Traore is legit. He then made the finals in both events at the NCAA's indoors, but in the 200, he of course got the silver medal. But he was technically the fastest runner in the first section of the 200. It was only when Terrence Jones ran a little bit faster that he found out he was not going to be the winner. At this moment in the story, I have to point out two things. One is that Cheickna Traore made it very clear during an interview that he committed himself after that indoor meet to making sure he came back outdoors to become a champion, which he did. Spoiler alert. But I also have to point out, just in case you didn't notice, that Terrence Jones of Texas Tech basically didn't really compete at all during the outdoor season in 2024. I mean, yeah, technically he touched the track, but that wasn't the same Terrence Jones that was the double NCAA champion. So it doesn't take that much to figure out that Cheickna Traore should have been the favorite to win the NCAA outdoors in the 200. But for some strange reason, the announcers were still ignoring him. The fact remains that we still expect most of the fastest men in college to all come from the same few schools every year. It's likely the reason why Florida's Robert Gregory was of way more interest to the announcers even after he lost to Cheickna Traore in the final. Simply put, the top schools are supposed to have all the top talent, which is technically true, but only if you're just considering the recruitment rankings alone. And I don't know how to say this part without it coming out harsh, so I'm gonna just come out and say it. There are some really good and really bad coaches in every single conference and every single division in the NCAA. And no, I am not saying any names, but just assuming that because a coach is in the SEC, that they're going to be better at making you faster than somebody else who's not in that conference, or might even be in Division 3. Like where Cheickna Traore came from is ridiculous, because the coach is essentially just a resource for the college program, albeit a very valuable one. If you need an analogy, just think about this. When you look at two cars, the tires on the car are essentially just a resource for the car. Whether we're looking at a Lexus, a Ferrari, a Honda, or anything else, it doesn't really matter what the logo of the car is, because the tires are just the tires. We can put them on anything. You can have a brand name car with trash tires on it. You can have a brand name school with bad coaches as well. In the SEC, which is clearly the best sprinting conference in all of D1, they're really only looking to recruit a 100-meter runner who can probably break 10.2 wind legal before you get in the uniform. That has nothing to do with whether or not they can help you run 9.9, but it does have something to do with whether or not you can help score points right now. What I'm trying to say is that Cheickna Traore likely never would have been this fast if he ended up at a school like Penn State or some other major program immediately out of high school, because he needed to find a coach who believed in him and his potential as much as he did. And that's not going to happen if he's coming into the program as a 2-star level recruit when you got 4s and 5 stars on that roster. And it was only after he performed like a 5-star, years later, that anybody in the Big Ten was interested in recruiting him. And to clarify, it wasn't even all the big schools that wanted to recruit him. Why do you think he chose Penn State to begin with? The same school that only scored 10 points. His 10 points at the NCAA meet in 2024. So after all those years of sprinting and running big PR after big PR, he is now an NCAA champion, both in Division 3 and in Division 1. The same guy whom nobody wanted to recruit in Division 1 a few years ago. You don't have to remember where he's from, but you need to be aware of where he's going, because this movie isn't even over yet. He is going to be there, in Paris, at the Olympics. He's already hit the standard in the 200 for Côte d'Ivoire, and he doesn't have to worry about running in the trials in order to get into the meet. Of course, he's not a favorite to make the final, but then again, he wasn't even the favorite to win the NCAAs, although he should have been. In the same way that he said he would go on to win the NCAA title outdoors, He also told us he would be an Olympian in 2023 after that season. That is already 2 big goals on his list that he has checked off. So if bringing home a medal from Paris this summer is on his list, I wouldn't count him out just yet, because by now you should be very well aware that the lanes on the track do not care that he was never supposed to be this fast to begin with. SCA track and field gear is here. Fast is a lifestyle, and what you wear should reflect that. Order yours at scarecruiting.com/shop or use the link in the description below. It's a huge support to me and this channel, so I can continue to make you more content like this. And remember, it is always greatly appreciated if you would please like and subscribe.